Enschede, Amsterdam. You try it. Good. And then we'll learn how to say my name is and where we're from. You heard me say, hello, my name is Kristen. I'm from Delaware Nation. Let's start with hello. Goedenavond. You try it. Good.
On purpose that we would only take loans from Ukraine, from Ukrainian museums, and also from artists who were either in Ukraine or who had fled recently, so that it would also, in that sense, be a support of the institutions and the artists. It was really a fantastic show. It was really so impressive.
Are you familiar with the names?
Some of them, yeah. I tried to tell you yesterday about artist who created a logo of Kharkiv, but didn't manage because he made a reference on this building. That was the first skyscraper in the Soviet Union, and one of the first skyscrapers in the Europe in 1920s. And it became a symbol of my city as a building with a great resilience, and it became a symbol of Kharkiv in front of Russian invasion. Oh, by the way, they took these pictures from the Wikipedia, but originally they're stored in my museum. Польщі, як перетинаєш кордон, іноді так виглядає, іноді відчутно, а іноді навпаки, так виглядає як Полтавщина, а Євросоюз. А так і не розбереш.
Там дуже просто діють ми мали їхати в Хорватію на конференцію і просто психологічно суспільство ставитися до всього, чужого і до свого.
So my name is Katarina Chuyeva, and I have been working over 2 decades for one of the most well-known Ukrainian museums, the Bogdan and Varvara Kharyenko National Museum of Art. And then I came to the Ministry of Culture and spent 2 years there at the position of the Deputy Minister on Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine, and we worked for the protection of cultural heritage of Ukraine and also museum collections during this first 2 years of full-scale invasion. Last autumn, we met with Tayana Stepanovic here in DutchCulture during my last visit. We met with a number of Ukrainian colleagues here and also discussed with Dutch colleagues and colleagues from other countries who came the possible ways, what we can do else. And my idea was to ask international partners to be more focused on the regional level, on the regional museums in Ukraine, because I felt that they are a little bit underrepresented, and so we found this group after some month of preparations, thanks to initiative and support of Tiana and the DutchCulture director. So that is how it started, this idea.
Thank you very much for organizing these meetings, because
I guess it's very important for all of us during this. Unfortunately, this war, it seems to be long, and I'm very happy that we have a chance to present, to involve new people into our international dialogues and international projects.
So I give strategic advice to museums, and I publish on museums. Museums are the only thing I know about, so that's the thing I kept on doing, and I feel really honored and also humbled to talk with you today about museums, and also on Thursday we also have a meeting with a broader audience in Utrecht. So I'm looking forward to that too. Thank you.
I work for DutchCulture now for 3 years, and before I used to work also in a museum, so there's a lot of museum expertise here around the table, and I'm quite pleased, of course, to welcome you here, and also that you've been given a chance to also meet with other museums in the Netherlands, because although the Netherlands is a relatively small country, the number of museums in a specific surface is quite high. There's a high density of museums here. And I think you will be given, also due to the program that Diana made, a good overview of the variety of those museums.
And the goal really is that you see what we have, but also to see where the possible connections are, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also to learn from your practices.
Okay. Well, shall I introduce? Shall we first make a round and then?
My name is Konstantin Dubin. I'm from Ukraine, Kharkiv. I work in Historical Museum of Kharkiv City as a head of department.
I'm Valeria Lavrenko. I'm a deputy director at the Regional Museum in Ukraine, Dmytro Yavornitsky, Dnipro National Historical Museum.
I'm Olga. I'm from Odessa. Odessa is the big seaport on the Black Sea coast. I'm working at Odessa Regional History Museum.
I'm Yulia. I work as a senior researcher of the Department of Funds in Vinnytsia Regional Museum of Local History, Heritage and Nature.
Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our moderator of today's session. Where are you? Arnoud. Arnoud Odding, former director of Rijksmuseum Twente, also a regional museum, researcher, and currently independent museum strategy advisor, who will guide us through the program today. Arnoud, the floor and the mic are yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is an afternoon with a question on the role of museums in wartime, the role of regional museums in wartime.
On the 24th of February 2022, at 7 o'clock a.m., I had a call. Administration, management of museum told everybody of employees not to go to the museum. You must not go to museum. And I went to museum because it was my duty. And when I came, all 150 people were there, and we decided to dismantle our collection. And there are a lot of people with low salaries in the museum, but that day everyone came. And they came to do their best to save the collection, and this is how it worked.
Some of the images that I saw in this PowerPoint reminded me of some photographs which I saw of the museum of which I was the director. People having huge paintings and taking them out of the museum and to store them and to protect them. But that was 80 years ago, or even longer. So it's hard for me to understand the situation of the museums and the situation which you are going through.
Some of them have duties before their relatives, but everybody was in the museum, and everybody helped to dismantle our permanent exhibition and to pack it and preserve it in the basement. At the first days, we dismantled main exhibition, and we were packing, protecting our sculptures with the sandbags and so on. But soon after, we lost big cities. After Ukraine lost two cities, Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, there were a lot of people coming to Dnipro, nearly 600,000. And they mainly came from Luhansk region. And there was a tradition in Luhansk region to go to museum for humanitarian aid. So they came to our museum and asked for humanitarian help. And we needed to communicate with international donors to find some funds. We gave nearly 6,000 food kits gave by the international donors to people who came to the museum asking for help. It is really big logistics after giving 6,000 packages of food, because you need to drive a truck, then you need to take them from the tracks and to give them to people. So I have an experience of unloading a 20-ton truck during 2 hours. I think it is exclusive museum experience. And since April 2022, these internally displaced persons asked not for food, they asked for culture. So we opened an educational hub in the basement. And we did a lot to tell about what is Dnipro, what is our community here, you see. And we began to do temporary exhibitions without using our collection. There were a lot of findings of territorial defense forces which digged the defense line around the city. They digged, and it was like ecological excavations without ecologists. And the territorial defense forces gave us this pottery, these skeletons, and so on, so on. So it was some kind of materials for our temporary exhibitions in the basements.
Museums are about possibilities. There was an idea some 10, 20, 30 years ago that museums are about science, about art, and this is good art, this is bad art. The museums are not neutral. Museums always choose. They choose, but what do we choose? What and why do we choose? What stories do we tell? And I think that's one of the main questions you are probably already thinking about?
We have complicated task of speaking about national identity in the period of war. And it is a hard task in which museum has to choose not to become a propaganda voice.
I think that museums they can be very, or have to be, maybe even have to be a kind of safe place for understanding who we are.
Now we have time in Ukraine where when these sentences, these discussions become weapon of war. That's why we have to be very, very sensitive to speak about that.
Today we are mostly speaking about who are Ukrainians and who they were during the imperial times and what was their relations with Russians, and they were always offensive.
It's a really interesting and very long discussion about colonization processes in Ukraine for the moment. And we are now thinking about it, research it, and museums are among the main actors in this field. Because, in other way we will return to Soviet times where the museums were instrumentalized. So now we have to develop the institutions like this freedom thinking or critical thinking centers.
Sometimes we say in Ukraine that we changed our flags from red to yellow blue, but sometimes our practice continues absolutely sorry.
What does it mean? I'm so curious. What do you refer to? What would be Soviet practice?
About Soviet traditions, we have to write a lot of reports. Events for this quality, write report. These event, write reports. What are you planning to do tomorrow? We don't know if we wake up tomorrow. Sorry. Nowadays, writing, reporting. It's awful. Nothing changed.
Can I add?
Sure.
Yeah, right. A lot of bureaucracy, I just forget about that. And what it means in reality, that we have a lot of reports to our government or local government or our heads, our bosses.
Local department, sure.
Departments,
yeah.
And what that means, that we often, I feel it, and a lot of my colleagues feel it, that we work not for society in real. We work for reports.
Yes.
We work to create reports what we have done in last week, month, quarter or year. This is a problem not because we have to fill all these papers, but because we change our focus. We don't have enough, I don't know, strength or time or anything else to work for people, for society, to do a real job.
And that's mainly because of the bureaucracy, or is it mainly because of the situation you were in at this moment?
This the roots of Soviet society, I believe.
We have received this, let's say, heritage really from the Soviet time, because a system of management on cultural heritage, including museums, including education, different level of education and so on, we have received it really from Soviet times. And this, we have to change the logic of these processes. And it is possible only if we will have what we call in Ukraine political will, to change the whole system. So we are now still standing on the head instead of standing on the foot. And that is why we are trying to, we have to have enough powerful voice of civil society and professional communities to be able to advocate and to changes, because it's, I understood for myself, unfortunately, that it is not possible to change inside the system. So you have to just to make push from outside, from different levels, also to advocate with international partners and so on, so just to have this critical mass of requests for change.
And the situation your country is in right now, you're not able to change those things because there are other priorities at this moment.
But it's very good time to change. If we will not change, it's much more higher risk to lose many things and to lose this war also, because it's a weak. It made us weak, and we have to strengthen ourselves through these changes. It's much more easy to do. I believe that it's much more easy to do in crisis times, because it's unfortunately it's a window of opportunity, and there is very high price for this opportunity, because dozens of thousands of people are killed for the moment. And we must do it, and so it's quite a little bit emotional moment, but we have to think about it, and that is why all of us are here.
It is hard to make some predictions after the victory, when this victory will be, but we understand that we will create new permanent exhibition, not as that was dismantled, because the processes of decolonization, for example, they are not just in the renaming of the streets. It is about our minds.
I think that's one of the nicest things about time, that the past is over. We can use it, we can look at it, we can think about it, we can create narrative stories, and the future we don't know yet. We can only say what we hope for the future, and that's one of the most beautiful things about museums. It's about hope, it's about discussions, about dreaming. So it is the opposite of closed thinking.
So, yeah, it's always difficult to keep walking because this is such a nice room. And the only thing I want to tell you here is that we are a very old institution of art and science, and this was the first art room that was built, and it was contemporary art. So today it looks historical, it is authentic, but it used to be contemporary art bought from living Dutch artists.
There was a search for a national identity, and you see that a little bit in the landscapes that are 18th century, early 19th century, but also seek out what Dutch identity is.
They reflect typical Dutch, in contrast to the French era. And there are some other connections to the French occupation as well in the science department, because we opened before the French came to the Netherlands and took over.
Yeah.
I always like to look from our institutional history or science history, that's my topic, to modern days. So, for instance, the discussions about deepfakes, VR, AR, and it's nice, but it's also dangerous, and we've been there in the 18th century because it's very funny, and we love it. Humans didn't change, only the technique. And also, and that's so nice, because in the 19th century, we joined it again. So, shall we have a look in the other room?
Yeah.
We won't forget you.
Wait just a second.
So that you could go to like the bioscope, before bioscopes, you could buy a ticket and travel all over the world, because every week there would be a different presentation. This time you would have been taken to the northern part of America with our modern mind, but sometimes they're still very convincing, like the Pepper's Ghost. ABBA still used it for their performances. So that's good old-fashioned 19th century technology, and it still works.
much for visiting us. I know you have a great program, so I hope I can show you a couple of things that might interest you. I hope also that we can have some kind of dialogue, because of course we are very much aware about the situation in Ukraine. Many of us are very much aware and with you, so I hope you and your family are doing well. But please, let's go inside.
Thank you.
In this room, we only hung these paintings, but I know you're also in the organization of museums, right? So you also know how to deal with how to survive as a museum. And I think like most of the museums, you never have enough money or possibilities.
Sure.
Or maybe you have, I don't know. But so we have the same thing. So I want to show you this room for two reasons. Of course, we have these beautiful paintings, but at the same time, this is also a place where you can marry. So, or even have drinks. And of course, you have to pay quite a lot to do this. But I think every year, quite some couples say yes here in this room. So this is also something that we use to get connected with the city, at the same time to gain, of course, money. So that's also something which is...
Yes, some Ukrainian museums try to do the same attempts.
Right, because you are a museum, so you're not here to earn money. But with this neoliberal situation and the museums became private, you needed to gain your own funds at a certain moment. And that happened in all museums as well as in this one. So, yeah. But I guess your museums are all state museums, provincial museums?
We can say that they are in the property of local community.
Yes?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We mean funding are from state or from municipal government, but not private, of course.
Yeah. Your sentence is good, that it is part of a local community. That is a very important statement, because it means it is not of art history, but it is of the people who live here. And that's also something that we are very much aware of. We'll show you a bit about that later on. But like Schiedam is also very much aware of this.
Museums are now experimenting a lot. So, for example, we also experiment with contemporary art in classical museums and so on and so on. And every colleague here can bring to the table some ideas what they're doing in this very difficult circumstances when people would like to go to museums. So it's important for them to go to theater, to go to museum, to read books.
I have another question around this. At this moment, you just mentioned museums are dismantled, or are you still open?
So our museum is closed, but what saves us maybe digital, some digital activities, some lectures, some events with students, school children, or so on, and we still present some traveling exhibitions, but in shelters. Relocation our legacy and artifacts and saving them and digitalizing our collection, of course. So, and of course gathering artifacts of war.
When the war started, we closed our museum for visitors. We demoted our exposition. Prepared for the evacuation the most valuable museum pieces. Also, we started to pay more attention to the mental health of Ukrainians, especially for those who lived in the constant stress. Most of all, we take care for the internally displaced people, defenders of Ukraine, and especially children.
We also had to dismantle our permanent exhibition. In 2022, we had nearly 600,000 IDPs, and most of them came to the museum and asked, tell us something about our new home. And we had to do it. So life goes on. War, it is not when time stops. It is when life goes on. Nevertheless.
We have also problems with war. The part of our exposition is dismantled, but we still work. We work with like refugees, internally displaced person from Mariupol and Kherson. We publish our bulletin or scientific historical journal, and maybe that's all.
All these programs for children and school pupils, I would say, so they normally come to the museum, or also you have some events outside from them, because we just discussed it with colleagues from Enschede. It's interesting.
I liked Skindam.
Museum of the Skidam.
Skidam, in the Stedelijk Museum of Skidam.
Because this museum has very close touch with the community for which it works.
How they work with communities, how they find, how do they find relevant topics,
how they reflect concerns of their community that looked just fantastic for us.
I think Schiedam is one of the most outstanding programs in this field. So we're actually looking at Schiedam, how they're doing it. So that's they're really good.
So we have one colleague. She's really dedicated on education, on getting all the schools here. We have another colleague who is booking all the school groups, that there are not too many. We are also open from, I think, 9 o'clock for schools.
I think so.
Yeah, so
before opening time.
For the public we open at 11 o'clock, but for schools we open at 9. So they can already start making some noise. We also have art classes for adults and for children. Then you have to pay, but then you get 6 times you can really work on special artwork here. So it's a place that is often used. I'm very happy.
So that's also why, for example, during the neighborhood evenings, that's sometimes, or I think actually very often, it's the children who take their parents on a guided tour through the museum, because of course they have been here with the school already. They are familiar with this place and they can really guide their parents and grandparents in this museum. Each scene there is a story told, and most of the time those are also a bit the lesser known stories. So for example, we like to tell stories about the women in Sweden, or about cultural exchange in the history of Schiedam. And also in the more familiar parts of the city, we tend to tell those stories every now and then. And we really wanted people to visit this together and have certain points they recognize, and then tell each other about what they know. And of course they can read also our text labels and things like that, but that's really how we thought of this design. Maybe you can have a small round yourself, but I think, for example, in the newer times we also decided to involve the public themselves.
Historical museums mostly started with the questions who we are, who are we as an identity, and how did we become the way we are. That's what historical museums mostly ask themselves, it's about identity. It's about identity. Local identity, regional identity, national identity. You will probably recognize this.
If we lose, there will not be communication about Ukrainian identity. There is no Ukrainians in the picture of life, in the world of Russians.
In fact, we have a number of instruments used by Russia. I mean, Russian Empire first, and then in Soviet times also by Soviet regime.
So when the most often instrument which was used by different empires was a kind of othering and dividing people into groups and separating them, so indigenous people and colonizers and so on. In Russian Empire, we had a quite different situation. It was a kind of dissolution of identity of indigenous population.
To make it really a kind of one, what is Putin saying, that we are a kind of one nation, but it's not a one nation, it's a one large and powerful nation and state absorb and dissolute these other identities.
So erasing any differences, cultural differences, languages differences, and so on, and absorption of these national resources, natural resources, and so on. And that is why the narrative of modern Kremlin regime about one nation, Russian and Ukrainians is one nation, it's constructed, and this construction is based on that empire time narratives and politics.
This war is considered like quite existential in Ukrainian cultural and societal sphere. From your position, from your point of view here, Ukraine is just one of these hotspots in the world.
So it is not here. It is fortunately that doesn't touch your families or your friends and so on. But it's like, you know, it's a climate change which are with us everywhere. And unfortunately, we have a high risk that the war also will be with us everywhere if we will not make enough efforts to stop it while it is possible. It is still possible, because I prefer not to not to go deeply in the topic in the thoughts about what we will have if we will not stop it, because it will be awful. And not to become sad at this moment, but I would like just also to ask everybody to remember that we are here thanks to people who went to army, who decided to protect the country, and unfortunately we also have a number of lost. So we lost our colleagues who went to army in previous 2 years, and at least so a few colleagues from regional museums already were killed at the fire line, and one of director of small regional museum in Chernihiv region also was killed. So we are, I guess, all of us as a community, national and both international community, are very responsible also for their memories and for the protection of this collection and for the proper action, let's say, ethical and operating in ethical manner and professional manner, because we have so high price paid for the possibility to be alive and to be there and to work with our museums and community. So just think also about it. We have to be also responsible for their memories. Thank you.
But today we understand that unfortunately war is going to be quite long.
When I was here, there were 3 days when there was severe missile shelling on Dnipro, and that's why I tried to communicate to my close people, to relatives, how are they, did they hear What about the windows? Because a lot of civilians lose their windows after one or another shelling and so on.
It's very difficult to compare, and I think in nowadays comparing is thankless thing, because of course we are suffering, but also fortunately we are still living in our houses, because we have a lot of people from Mariupol, Novakakhovka, Kherson who lost all. At first I was in Poland, and when I heard loud things, tram or bus or something, it's really, I did not the same, because it was very scary.
But I just left Ukraine a couple days ago, and I found, last night, I found myself jumping up from the noise that resembled to explosion.
So it's like life, ordinary museum life. But sometimes we have missile shelling, we have explosions in the background, and sometimes we need to do ordinary museum life in the basement, and sometimes we need to support our colleagues more because they are frightened, but life doesn't stop in a city involved in the war. We always feel guilty. It is when you are in Ukraine, you feel guilty. When you are abroad, you feel more guilty. And I'm not on front line, but my students are. It's very bad thing for a teacher, for a lecturer, to be not with your students, to be not with people whom you taught about history of Ukraine. So you always feel guilty. My time didn't come yet, but I think it will come. So I think that it will come time when I will have to do my duty as a soldier, and I'm ready for this. And I think about it every time I'm taking shower.
The consequences of the invasion is awful. They are awful, and we will deal with them, I guess, many decades, even after the end of the war. But the life, as my colleagues told during all this day, that despite all the work, and life is not life is not stopped.
Already now we are creating this basement for future identity and future memory about these hard days. Thank you for your attention.
And also thanks to your own presence here, and thank you for the idea to make this movie and introduce, because I guess it's important to, it's also a part of documentation, and maybe after 30 or 50 years somebody will search for these archives and to understand more about the situation and about the people who struggled together at different levels in different countries and support each other. And I guess this types of experience is really quite special for all of us. So keep in touch and go further together. Thank you.